Oh my God, he's gonna tip us. He's gonna tip us. Run! Hey, let it go. We're joking. Hey, oh my God, he's tipping us over. Hey, he's hey, man. Oh my God.
What's going on, YouTube? It's Sensei and Place to be chilling. Mr. Andy back again with another Smackdown live review from June 5th, 2020. So, Smackdown Live here. We are counting down towards Backlash, and we got a couple things coming up now going to Backlash. So, last week we seen that uncomfortable thing happen with Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy was arrested, and then of course Sheamus had his match with Daniel Bryan. Jeff Hardy came out distracting him, so Jeff Hardy comes out and tells the whole story about he didn't know what happened. He thought he let his family down because he swore that he would never do this again. And in real talk, we heard Jeff Hardy say this before, but saying that he didn't have a recollection there, but he knew that he was set up and that the Celtic Warrior was responsible for it. And see, what bothers me is that we just jumped right into this. There was no build. I'm like, you could have been building this up for the longest time, and you only had a week worth of build just so we can get a match for Backlash. I mean, you could have built this up so we can got this thing at SummerSlam, but we didn't. And I'm like, so we already know it's the Sheamus. We know Sheamus is the one that's behind all the Jeff Hardy stuff. So then Sheamus comes out, him and Jeff Hardy are starting to have a brawl. He throws Jeff Hardy to the plexiglass windows and stuff like that, gives him a bro kick, and they fight out into the crowd because, you know, social distancing, right? And then Sheamus, gets the upper hand by just throwing Jeff Hardy all in the plexiglass. I thought it could have been done a lot better, like of holding out for the rivalry and stuff like that. But once again, they're going to have this matchup at Backlash, and I don't see Sheamus losing at all. But I don't think it's going to be the last match between them at all. Backstage, we get the hot couple, Mandy Rose and Otis, walking by, and he sees King Corbin's robe and crown on a chair. And then he was like, "Oh yeah," and then grabs the crown and starts walking with it with Mandy Rose. And then we see Corbin scream and holler and pout because where's his crown? I'm like, are you fucking serious? I'm just like, see, Booker T was one of the only ones that made the King gimmick good. I actually did like King Sheamus and William Regal. They were good, but and King Barrett wasn't bad neither. But I don't like King Corbin, and I don't like him sitting around there crying about no damn crown. So now we get an impromptu match of Otis versus King Corbin, and the match is simple. Like I said, I don't care about Mandy was at ringside, but I really don't care about Corbin. Corbin gets a chair and hits Otis. I think he was disqualified. I'm not necessarily sure, but Otis fights back and hits the caterpillar on King Corbin anyway as he rolls outside the ring. So now backstage, John Morrison and The Miz they're trying to just piss off Braun Strowman. And throughout the night, they're hiding in this van with these cameras all around the arena so they can piss off Braun Strowman. And then, I'm going to get through some of the segments, but then, of course, say the final segment for when it does come up. And then John Morrison had a good line. It was just like, a famous man once said, "This is how we do it. It's Friday night." For those who don't know, Montel Jordan, "This is how we do it." So, yeah, I thought that was great. So Braun Strowman tries to go put some water in his protein shake, and then it kind of like explodes like the foaming volcano stuff that you see in high school projects and stuff like that. It happens. Braun Strowman is pissed. Then he had an interview with Kayla Braxton, and then he's talking to her, and then all of a sudden she gets slimed because it was intended for Strowman, but she gets slimed and she is pissed. She's like, "Those bastards." So then Miz and Morrison take a bat in a golf club to Braun Strowman's car and destroy his windshield as they're all hiding back into the van. Now, going back to SmackDown here, we have a rematch of Lacey Evans and Sonya Deville. This match was a lot better. It was a really good matchup. I knew last week when they had a count out that wasn't going to be the end of it, but they had a really good matchup here. Lacey Evans goes for that top rope spinning moonsault, and she hits it, but Sonya Deville kicks out. When Sonya Deville gets the upper hand, Mandy Rose shows up on the screen and then says, you said you're going to make my life hell. Well, it's not over. So the rivalry between Mandy and Sonya is not over. They just let it breathe for a little bit. Sonya is distracted, and then Lacey Evans gives her the women's right and knocks out Sonya Deville and wins the matchup. So obviously we're not done with this shit neither. They didn't announce anything for Backlash, but I'm thinking if they're not doing anything in July, then definitely maybe SummerSlam. It'll probably be Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville again, or they probably just do another SmackDown matchup, depending on if that's what, of course, if that's what they want to do or not. We get, next we're going to have a face-to-face between Bryan and AJ Styles about the Intercontinental Championship. They have the Intercontinental Championship out there on the podium, and Bryan and AJ's out there, and then Daniel Bryan is speaking about how he's noble and he's not a coward like AJ Styles, and he's going to fight for this Intercontinental Championship to make the title the championship here on SmackDown. AJ calling him stupid. But then his protege, Drew Gulak, comes in and attacks AJ Styles. So then we get an impromptu match of Drew Gulak and AJ Styles, which I never thought I would really want back then, but now I do. Like, when Drew Gulak first came, I was like, okay, I gotta rep him because he's from Philly. But I'm like, but you know what? Drew Gulak, he never really kind of impressed me. He was like the boring cruiserweight. Then he did the PowerPoint presentation, and then he had that whole cruiserweight title run. And that matchup I seen live at Evolve with Matt Riddle, that's when I was on Drew Gulak's side. And now Drew Gulak versus AJ Styles is a match that, yes, give me that matchup. They had a good matchup back and forth. Drew Gulak hits the roll up on AJ Styles and picks up the victory, and AJ Styles is now clearly upset. And then backstage we have Mojo Rawley, who is the luckiest WWE superstar on the roster, making fun of Shorty G with these short jokes, which leads to a 6-man tag of Shorty G in the New Day taking on Nakamura, Cesaro, and Mojo Rawley. If Gronkowski went back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or went to the Tampa Buccaneers to follow Tom Brady, ride his dick, I would say Mojo Rawley is in that round of cuts. Absolutely. But he stayed because they thought they had Gronk a little bit longer. Gronk said, screw y'all, I'm leaving, I'm going back to Tom Brady. And then now they just kept Mojo Rawley here on SmackDown. Don't worry. So if I had to trade for anybody, I'll take Leo Rush back and get Mojo Rawley back, get him out of here. So we get a 6-man tag team matchup with them. The match is kind of boring. I don't care anything about Mojo Rawley's offense. Him and Shorty G are exchanging the most at the end as he tries to go for his whatever pancake move that Mojo does, but then Shorty G reverses out of it, puts him in the ankle lock, but then gets a Kinshasa by Shinsuke Nakamura. But Big E comes in, and then Big E goes, and him and they hit the midnight hour on Mojo Rawley. Shorty G goes and does a springboard on Nakamura and Cesaro, but they catch him, but he holds them back from going to pick up the pin as the New Day pick up the win here. So it was a really nothing matchup. I didn't really too much care about it, but I was like, we're still doing the Shorty G jokes. So now we go back to the Braun Strowman and Miz and Morrison shenanigans, and then now we see that. So there's a person over there that sold the Miz and Morrison house and said they're in that truck. So they come, Braun Strowman comes banging on the van that they're inside, and then all of a sudden, if you see a van, Braun is going tipping. So Braun Strowman goes and tips over the van as Miz and Morrison's in there with the camera because they're doing very hilarious, and then he turns the van over and then screams and yells. So it should be an interesting matchup for Backlash, but Braun has just, him in Universal Championship is just not working, in my personal opinion. But once again, they couldn't help that because it's supposed to be Roman and the Goldberg thing, all big story. Tag team matchup, we have Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross taking on Bayley and Sasha Banks in the main event for the Women's Tag Team Championships. I actually thought this was actually a pretty decent matchup, as Sasha and Bayley had some good offense. Sasha with the double knees to Nikki Cross to the outside of the ring. So there's a point in the match where Sasha is going for the bank statement. Now the question is, she was going for the bank statement on Nikki Cross. We don't know if Nikki Cross was the legal woman or not, because then Bayley comes in and she wants to go take over and give Nikki Cross the bank statement as well, and she pulls Sasha out the bank. She's like, get out the ring, get out the ring, get out the ring. And Sasha's looking at her like, what bitch, what you doing? But then it doesn't work as then Nikki Cross hits a old school Regal cutter on Bayley, but then Sasha, depending on like if she should break up the pin or not, but she end up does. Then she goes and gives Nikki Cross the bank statement her way, the right way, and then Nikki Cross taps out as Bayley keeps Alexa Bliss from going back in the ring, and then they win the tag team champions. Bayley and Sasha Banks are the ones who were first tag team champions, are now back as the women's tag team champions. So I'm like, well, that I did not see that coming, to be honest with you. But I'm not mad that they're champions. So that was SmackDown, and I have to say, SmackDown. I was not a fan of SmackDown. SmackDown gets a failing grade for me this week, and it's because like the main event was fine. I mean, you're building tension between Bayley and Sasha Banks. I don't care about Corbin crying about his crown and then leading a match to Otis. I don't care about Mojo Rawley still having a job and talking about Shorty G. The 6-man tag team was nothing. Sonya Deville and Lacey Evans was good. So the women did good tonight, but I wasn't care about too much anything else in the episode. Oh, and AJ Styles and Drew Gulak was cool, but still they do enough to make the show a pass. So how'd you guys feel about SmackDown? Post down in the comments down below. Hit that like button if you guys enjoyed this review, and hit the subscribe button for more WWE content and wrestling content right here on Nerd Coalition. So once again, this is NC Place to Be. Children Training Machine, and Nerd Coalition is out.